Are surprising. Rod Stewart has talked about Sam Cooke with great passion. To me, Ray Charles, Joe Cocker about Ray Charles. Phil Collins about the Buddy Rich Big Band. But sometimes, like a little surprises, like Chuck Berry once told me how, he said, I'm a real sentimentalist. He said, I grew up listening to Benny Goodman's String of Pearls. He said, and I really like big bands. And Wilbur has been telling me all about Charlie Parker and John Coltrane over the years. So what I want to ask you guys is, what lit your fires? Who was it that you were either inspired? Well, Chubby's a great place to start, of course. Yeah, I mean, who did you listen to, and who did you want to be like? And of course, we'll very soon get to John McNally, where I can probably bet the house on the fact that Buddy Holly will get mentioned. Okay, but let's Chubby, to you.
Well, when I was a kid, I lived on my dad and mom lived on the farm, and in those days there was no TV, there was just radio, and if we weren't in church, we probably was in the field picking cotton or working in the tobacco fields and the things that farmers do, because we lived a lot like the Amish people. So every now and then, if we weren't on the farm, we'd go to the state fair, go to the fair, and I must have been about 4 years old, and Mom took me to the fair in Georgetown, and on the stage there was a singer, a cowboy singer named Ernest Tubb. And when I saw Ernest Tubb, my mouth came open, and it never closed. I told my mom, I want to do that. She said, what's that? I want to do what he's doing. She said, Ernest, he's a cowboy. I said, Mom, I can be a cowboy too. And so Ernest Tubb is the reason why I'm really in show business, because all I ever saw. And after that, I was 4 years old, and I thought about Ernest Tubb. And then people like Louis Jordan, guy who used to sing Caledonia, what makes your big head so hard? Ha! And that kind of guy. Then later on, Perry Como and Nat King Cole. And by the time I was 10 years old, it was 1951, and I heard a song called 60-Minute Man. It took me all of my life to figure out what that was. And I guess I was maybe well into my 20s when I realized what 60-Minute Man was. And I said, that was pretty good, man. You're a 60-minute man. And that song was a song that really got me, and I was influenced by these people. By the time the 50s came, I was into my teens, but the people that turned me on when I was a kid was Chuck Berry. Elvis Presley.
Just turned 90 and just made a new album.
Elvis, because I remember I was 13, 14. Elvis Presley, Chuck Berry, Fats Domino, Little Richard, Jerry Lewis. These were the people that actually, at that point, they were the epitome of what we were trying to do. Everything else after that, no matter who you were just fragments off of the big volcano. But these were the people that really lit up my fire and got me going.
Fantastic. Gary, you're next in the line.
Thank you. All those people you just mentioned were the same people that I would mention, along with Coasters and Platters, Everly Brothers, Gene Vincent, Eddie Cochran. There's a bunch of them in back there. But you know who really got me going into all this was my parents. They grew up. Yeah, it was my folks. Now, they grew up through the big band era, and they did not understand rock and roll, but they were both musicians. My mom was a superior pianist, and she was a great singer. My dad was a very good sax player. They both read music through my mother's life. She taught piano lessons and things like that. And there were 5 kids in our family, and each one of us were required as a part of life to have a bit of a musical foundation, because that's how they met. They played in a big band called the Dick Halverson Big Band in Minnesota. Yeah, so they opted for a more normal life because tour buses were pretty drafty in those days and weren't really comfortable, and they thought it'd be a little better to have a normal life, and they wanted to have a family and all that. So at 5 years old, they sat me at the piano and they said, "You're going to learn to play some piano." And of course, I was a kid and wanted to go out and chase garter snakes and things of that nature, but I learned to play some piano. And when rock and roll came along, it was all about guitars and chicks and having fun, that's really what it was. But all those same people that Chubby mentioned, and that's what really turned me on. I went to see a movie called Blackboard Jungle. Yeah, and it was, the cat with the crazy curl was singing, and it just, I watched those guys from the streets of Brooklyn dancing together, and I just went, wow, that's just too cool. So it kind of turned me on, and I was aware of music before that point with people like Patti Page and How Much Is That Doggy in the Window, and
we try to forget that happened. We try to think everything started with Chuck Berry.
Forget it happened, I don't know. It had something to do with the transition from big band to rock and roll. Julius LaRosa, the Hit Parade, all that stuff, and I would watch it, So kind of my story right there.
Thank you. And the two-headed monster of Frank and John.
Yeah. We're all pretty much the same age, so we're all going to say, I think the big explosion was rock and roll. And it was obviously going to be all the people that mentioned, particularly for me, Elvis first of all, and then the Everly Brothers. Gary mentioned the Everlys. They were gods to me. They always were, right from the till Phil passed away, and they still always will be, so they were incredible. And again, I agree with Gary in that the early part of the 50s, it might not have been rock and roll, but that was the first time I really got interested in music, and all that, like, simple little pop stuff there, including Rosemary Clooney and Doris Day and Frankie Lane and Mario Lanza. I mean, that all went towards what came afterwards, and I thought all those people were great, because rock and roll changed it. But in Britain, of course, we had something that most other countries didn't have, which was skiffle.
Yes.
Now,
Well, can you immigrants explain to the people who might not know?
No, they don't.
Exactly what skiffle was.
Well, skiffle was pretty much about the same time rock and roll happened. A guy called Lonnie Donegan, which I know people out there, recognize, the name they'll recognise. He introduced what was really American folk music, red party music, simple bluesy music, rocked up a little bit, just played with acoustic guitars, the simplest of chords. And what that did, and Donegan was a fantastic performer, and I saw him just before he died. He was even better then from the early days. The guy was a genius. And what it meant for people like us when guitars had just came out, rock and roll had happened, but it was quite complicated to play, considering we didn't know how to play guitars. We bought them to look good and to impress people. But, absolutely well.
And you didn't have the instruments, did you?
I went into music to be screamed at, not to play music. And we'll
quote you on that.
Well, with 3 chords, what it allowed you to do was you could go in front of the public, and with the minimum amount of talent, you could actually be a performer for a short while. It's absolutely true, we still do it. It's absolutely right, you could go on, simple music. I mean, we did it when I was a kid, 13, 14 at school. We had a little semi-pro skiffle band, and we played in pubs for 10 shillings a night. That was a whole group, not each, And we, I mean, God knows what it sounded like. It must have been hideous, because we really couldn't play. But people allowed us to get away with it. Thank you for your support, John. And it was, a lot of people forget the importance in Britain of skiffle, and I never will. Donegan was great, Chas McDevitt, the Vipers, all people like that. And I'm sorry if it never made it over here.
Well, your contemporaries, the Beatles.
Did it come over here at all?
No.
Oh yes, it did. But I mean, John Lennon came out of the Quarrymen, which was effectively
Well, yeah,
a
that was a skiffle group. Yeah, but it was important in giving us the confidence to go on stage and perform with no talent whatsoever. And then, as you learned, got more chords, and then you could play a bit better.
Moving. Because one of the things, by the way, I asked you, not only what influenced you, but who you might, over your long career, who you might have actually seen, been able to actually, you know, sort of, you know, be exposed to.
Is that on? It's on now. Is it on?
Yeah.
Well, I come from Hank Williams.
Oh, Hank Williams.
Yeah, my brother was in the Merchant Navy, out of Liverpool. He used to bring all the records back from New York, along with Eddie Arnold and all the other country singers, Johnny Cash, and I used to get into all that, and it was fantastic. Until Eddie Cochran, Buddy Holly, Gene Vincent, they all came in, and I was hooked, well and truly hooked. And the good thing about having an older brother, he built all the guitars back in Japan, so I was into it quite early. So they're my influences.
And what's
my big brother?
Not having television here. Yeah, I know. Yeah, well, I had 6
you wear
children, and then I got a television.
Ignore it.
What is a wild man from the Trogs? What actually shaped him, and what did he want to see and want to be exposed to? Elmer Cogan.
Well, actually, my first influence, strangely enough, was a chap who played guitar in a big band that was going around. They had a show on BBC old-fashioned radio on Sunday afternoon. I think it was Billy Cotton Band Show. A chap called Elton Hayes played guitar in it. And at the end of that show, he played a thing called Desert Patrol. It was primarily, you got it, yeah. Which, that was what first turned me on about guitar. Him and another chap called Elton Hayes, who sang folksy songs, Robin Hood and all that sort of stuff. But after drifting around the music business, when I started playing when I was 9, didn't do it seriously until I forgot how to play clever stuff and learnt 3 chords and got long trousers when I was about 18. And drifting around the music business since then for about the last 50 years or so. The thing that I love about it is bumping into people that have already met already and reassessing friendships and so on. But the whole thing is a continual surprise. You never know what's going to come up next. I'm sure you've all seen these 2 guys that virtually take 2 pianos and a drum kit to pieces and put them
Stomping ivories, yeah.
Aren't they amazing? I've never seen anything like it in my life. And I never met Chubby before. I saw him last night. I can't believe it.
The hardest working man in show business.
The only way of stopping this guy is to take the batteries out. He hasn't got enough. But this whole business is just full of wonderful surprises, and you never know what's going to happen next. And that's the biggest influence of it, I think.
And Barry, your heroes and your motivation.
Well, one sitting right at the end there. I said this yesterday, when I first saw Chubby on the movie, I was about 11, 12 years old, and I then saw Rock Around the Clock with Bill Haley at the local cinema. We weren't allowed to stand up, I remember. They were walking around with torches, making everyone sit down, and everyone was getting really excited. I was on the back row with this girl. We had these seats called love seats. It was like 2 seats. You remember love seats? Yeah. Right. I've also got a great name for a band there, the love seats. And I remember getting kicked out of the cinema really because everyone just went crazy when they heard this Rock Around the Clock. It was like just the inception of something really, really new. And then I saw Jailhouse Rock with Elvis, and I thought when I grow up, I want to be 6'1", have black hair and big lips. So I got 2 out of 3, so what the hell? Can't really go on. And my mum was a singer. She was a famous singer in England in the 1950s. So there was always that pressure for me to go into showbiz. But her singing was, like Albert Cogan, was a sort of different kind of school. It was a sort of a very American, Rosemary Clooney kind of Doris Day singing. It was great. It wasn't my cup of tea. I was a Beatles fan. And just all these influences around you. I remember going to the local youth club when Dave Clark was really big. I don't remember those shirts he wore that went sort of like doctor shirts all around. Well, we couldn't afford to buy those, so I used to turn my shirts around and pass it up. Which looked great, as long as you didn't take your jacket off, because you just then looked like an idiot, really. And just stuff that happened in the 60s. It was fabulous. That's my little story, anyway.
And Wilbur, what lit your fire? I mean, I've been hearing for many years about your jazz heroes.
Well, look, I started in the school orchestra, and all our instructors were playing in the Channel 9 band in Melbourne. So we played great arrangements, whether it was Rodgers and Hammerstone or Glenn Miller or Count Basie. And look, when I was probably 13, I went to see the Oscar Peterson Orchestra, as it was known. And it was just piano, bass and drums, but Oscar Peterson, being the pianist he was, had the orchestra at his fingertips. So there's lots of influences, 7 of whom are sitting right alongside me, and I can't begin to tell you the thrill it has been serving alongside them. Thank you, gentlemen. And, you know, so I have this great privilege to have grown up in an era created by these guys. They broke the barriers, you know, out of a very conservative and complacent America in the 1950s for popular music anyway. I mean, it was great for jazz, but I can't begin to think of the struggles for a young black American, what you had to work through, Chubby, just to do what you have done and accomplish what you have. To make those courageous decisions, to bust away from the pack, and they all have in their own way, you know, so they paved the way for us. Our decisions were a lot easier to make because of the legwork put in by these guys. But one of my influences, of course, was, and I think it was Frank who mentioned Doris Day. Yeah, and my first album, I kid you not, the first album I got Mum to buy for me was Doris Day and Howard Keel in Calamity Jane. You know, take me back to the Black Hills of Dakota, and once I had a secret love. You know, all great tunes. And then, remember John Blackman, my friend?
Yes!
He was one of our compatriots on the TV show we did here for many years. Black is older than me, and he said that he used to watch the Doris Day and Rock Hudson movies on a Sunday afternoon, yelling at the television, "Doris, you're wasting your time." He knew. I started getting a little bit sidetracked there. But along with, you know, the big band stuff, and I mean, I saw the Duke Ellington Orchestra at Festering Hall, I was going to say. Those of you who live in Melbourne, but Festival Hall.
Yes.
And it's just mind-blowing, that sort of stuff, for a young guy, you know. And I mean, I'd like to think that I've soaked a bit of it up, and then the experience of seeing my first rock and roll band. I will tell you about it. It was Mark Bolan, right? T-Rex, once again at Festival Hall. And I would have been 15, just playing with a cover band. We were doing some Chicago stuff and Blood, Sweat and Tears. But the guitar player in that band had worked with Mark Bolan in England. And we didn't know. He said, "Yeah, look, Mark's invited us backstage." So we went backstage, and there's Mark Bolan, like just about a metre of dry ice like dry ice fog over the stage at Festival Hall. The band was so loud, and it was like, and Bolan was on his hands and knees, crawling around. Every now and then a head would poke up above the dry ice fog. "Metal Guru, where are you?" They'd disappear again. They'd pop around somewhere else. It was crazy. It was wacky. And I would have been 16 by then. And I thought, yeah, I want to do that.
And you did.
Well, you know, it sort of was something similar.
Okay, one thing we discussed yesterday was the extraordinary spectrum of music that flourished in the 60s. And all of you came at it and participated in slightly varying degrees, but I put forward the theory that the reason why it was so imaginative, so intense, and so exhilarating and exciting on both sides of the fence is because nobody was really making much money. I mean, you didn't do it to become rich at the time. You did it to, as Frank said, to meet girls. You did it to just be part of a universal consciousness out there, to do what other people your age were doing. Can you just give us some sense, any of you, of just what it felt like to be in the middle of that maelstrom that was in fact happening in the 60s? And you know, and we will never see another decade like it. I think that can fairly be said, of that much innovation and that much excitement. But but to be at the heart of it, as you all were, I'm curious to know how it felt, because we know how it felt to be watching it, but how did it feel to be there?
The music was incredibly important, but I mean, we all wanted to be famous as well. You know, I mean, you know the celebrity culture now. I mean, fame is the most important thing now, which is very sad, really. But you know, I think we all wanted to be someone in life, and being someone in music, being in front of the people that you knew as kids. made you feel a bit special. But the music was really at the essence of the whole thing. I mean, as I was saying before, I wanted to get on stage to be screamed at, but really rock and roll was the most, I just wanted to play rock and roll. But apart from that, you know, you wanted to be a star, I think. I don't know. What do you think?
But I'm curious, just one thing about, you know, suddenly you're in a British seaport town like Liverpool, and you're playing your skiffle and you're playing away, and not too much later, you're in America with hordes screaming, you're on the Ed Sullivan Show and the whole thing. I mean, that must have been do weird things to your head, in a way, you know, to have that happen to you.
Not really, I never took it too serious, that's all. I just get on with it. I just want to be in the band, that's it. And coming from the Liverpool Dock area, I was quite happy to go to New York and play Ed Sullivan's Show and have a laugh. But I didn't take it too serious until I realised when we get our sort of earnings statement, we had no money. So,
By the way, I said nobody made
60s.
Nobody made any money. This man was a millionaire at 22.
Was he?
Somebody made money.
The lens a few bubbly. Well, we didn't. 67 is when we realised there's nothing coming in, so we sacked everybody and started ourselves. It's true. Same with the Beatles, Stones, they all did it.
But all of you were in that eye of, you know, sort of like, you know, Barry with Paul and Barry Ryan, and of course, you know, Chris and the Trogs. You're all in the eye of that storm. And you know, again, I'm just curious to know how it felt and how you handle it.
Well, you're very young and you
yes,
just
we'll get to you in a moment.
Well, I think you've kind of posed an interesting question. Chubby was a millionaire at 22. Could have just thrown it in. Why did you keep going? Why do you still do it?
Okay, Chubby, that's an interesting question. I mean, yes, I mean, you were a millionaire. You had married Miss World. I mean, you really had seemingly the world at your feet, but you kept at it. You kept on going, influencing people.
In the 60s, if you had $1,000, it was worth $1,000. You could buy more things with your money in the 60s. It wasn't a lot of money, but the money that you had was worth something. Even in Australia, you know, things, if you bought a house in 1960 and you paid $100,000 for it, it was worth $100,000. The same house 20 years later is worth $3 million. So there was really a lot of money around in the 60s. There was. There was a lot of wealth, but even Elvis Presley only made $10,000 a night, but it was $10,000. You know, he made $10,000, we made $1,500 a night, but it was $1,500. We came in at a time when the purses weren't as big. I remember going to England, and Piccadilly Circus, there's a Rolls Royce dealer in the middle of the park. You know where that is? Yeah, okay. So I went there and just want to have that car. Well, that car was $18,000. A little two-seater, and I wanted to be in there with my girl, you know? Because I always know that if you have a nice car and a pretty girl and a pocket full of money, that's the best you could ever do.
Good start. nothing has changed.
That's it. And so, but it was $18,000. Now, today, if I want to buy that same car today, it's $250,000. But so we did okay, and we had something that no one else had. I just happened to, it could have happened to anybody, but it just happened to be singing the twist. Nobody had it. It was something that no one ever did. The world was changing, and we were changing the world on the dance floor, and everybody wanted to be a part of it. Everybody. Even today, I was just in LeFou, that little island, went to a grocery store, and I bought a pack of Twisties.
Do you get a royalty?
I don't get nothing.
Did you suffer from crooked management like we did?
Everybody suffered from crooked
disappear?
management because we didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
We were afraid to count our money to make sure, because we might not get any more if we looked after our money. And the managers and record companies took all your money. But the wealth that we enjoy is right there.
Hey.
That's why I say, when we are servants of them, these people here are worth everything. In fact, like I always said, we're just a good excuse for the party.
What a party it is.
It's all about you.
John just said, have you got our money?
By the way, we've touched on money. Do we now touch on sex, drugs, and rock and roll?
Glenn, you know,
Not with the searchers.
the Royal Caribbean Cruise, they understand that when you get off the ship and you're getting ready to go to the island, you notice how well they take care of you? Guess why? Because you are everything to all of us. We're so thankful for you. Without a doubt.
Look, I mentioned sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but of course, it wasn't just so much sex as the intonation of it, the suggestion of it. And in those days, as the Trogs would well know, because that 3 records band, I mean, sometimes the simplest sentiment, and Gary had a record band, but sometimes, you know, just the very suggestion, the possibility of it, sent people running to the hills. I mean, it was an interesting time. We felt so liberated and free, but the people running the society weren't feeling liberated and free at all. The 60s was a bit of a threat to them. I mean, would that have been the case, Chris?
Well, we were a threat to the society. I don't think so.
Oh, you corrupted us all. I can't control myself. You know, those hips are showing. My God, we never recovered from it.
I think the various people in the position that they could ban things for being suggestive and so on had a very fertile imagination, and they must have had quite exciting lives themselves. We were suggesting them as being a little bit naughty. So.
Well, if PJ Proby were here,
Yeah, it's very tight. I was just going to mention PJ, because PJ's whole career collapsed in a matter of weeks because someone saw his knee.
Yeah.
I mean, it was serious.
Yeah.
I mean, we were all around. Well, no, that's his story on stage. But you see the pictures. He had this tight velvet outfit, and he bent down. And whether he engineered that or not, I don't know. Only PJ knows. I mean, it's live in PJ's world, and anything could happen. But it was just like split across the knee and across there. I mean, you would be duty bound to show a lot more flesh these days, you know, and his career collapsed. So there was
some point like Janet Jackson at the Super Bowl with the wardrobe malfunction.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but you know, I mean, no one died of shock, did they? You know, it was like America's a bit prudish like that. You know, in England they were sort of oh, yeah, and then got on with their fish and chips. But PJ his whole career was ruined. The poor man has never recovered from it. I mean, he's such a great guy and all that, you know. Oh well.
Well, okay, but look, sex, drugs, and rock and roll aside, what we saw in the 60s, in that 10 years, remember, I often like to say that we went from "She Loves You, Yeah, Yeah, Yeah" to "Excuse Me While I Kiss the Sky" in 3 years. The change was so rapid, but the change was incredibly rapid in the recording studio. From the records that Chubby made, at the beginning of the 60s, which are direct and simple, to what the Beatles were doing with some